just after our son finished the college entrance exam. My husband took his mistress on a trip. They ended up in a shipwreck, drowned to death, and left behind a mountain of debt, faced with debt collectors showing up at my door. I had no choice but to work myself to the bone to pay it off, doing illegal jobs and carrying cement. I worked 16 hours a day to earn money for my son's college, his house, and his car. Then, the day my son finally made something of himself, my husband, who had supposedly died 7 years earlier, came back with his mistress to reap the rewards. My son even affectionately took the mistress by the hand and, with a dark expression, kicked me out of the house. "You idiot. I'm not some orphan you adopted at all. She's my real mom. You were somewhat useful when you were young, but now you've even got an old person smell. Hurry up, pack your things, and get out. Don't spoil the good life our family is enjoying." After years of overwork and illness, I was so enraged that I dropped dead on the spot. When I opened my eyes again, I had gone back to the day my husband was about to take his mistress to the seaside. 1. Our company's team-building trip to the seaside will probably take 2 or 3 days. Yenjing, while I'm away, make sure you take good care of our son. Before he left, my husband Chun Fei stood at the front door, changing his shoes as he reminded me. Seeing that I still hadn't answered from inside the house, he stuck his head in and urged me, "Yenjing, did you hear me? Also, where's my suitcase? The company car is already at the entrance to the neighborhood. Hurry up and bring it to me." Just as Chen Fei was getting anxious and about to head into the house, I finally slowly wheeled out the suitcase, holding the contract and explaining, Coming. I just remembered the property management contract for our community needs to be renewed, and you're the homeowner. Hurry up. Just sign it while you're at it." Chin Fei, impatient, didn't even take a close look at the contents of the contract. He hastily signed his name. "Honestly, you're still making me do things on my way out. What on earth have you been doing at home all these days?" "I'm off. Remember, take good care of our son." I quickly agreed, smiling as I saw Chin Fei off. Once I saw him nod, I carefully peeled open the cover of the property management contract, and beneath it was a line of bold text, "Life insurance contract," because I knew that, this time, when Chin Fei went out, he would die at sea. Last life. Chin Fei claimed it was a company team-building trip, but in reality, he was just going on vacation with his mistress. Then he even staged a shipwreck to fake his death and deceive me. In my grief, I still had to face the mountain of debt that came out of nowhere. She worked herself to the bone to pay off debts while taking care of her son. I was a housewife, and I couldn't find any decent jobs at the market. All I could do was grueling work, delivering takeout, hauling cement, scrubbing toilets. I was practically running myself ragged, all just to take good care of the only son Chin Fei and I had. Put him through college, buy him a house and a car. Finally, after everything my son had achieved and become, the day I thought I'd finally get to live a good life, Chen Fei actually came back with his mistress, Wang Yuqing. What made me even angrier was that even my son, Chun Tianyu, refused to acknowledge me as his mother in front of me. He affectionately held Wang Yuqing's hand and smugly mocked my stupidity. "You idiot. I'm not some orphan you adopted at all. She's my real mom." Then, with a dark expression, he ordered the maid to throw all my things out. He kicked me out of the house I bought for him. "You were somewhat useful when you were young, but now you've even got an old person smell. Hurry up, pack your things, and get out. Don't spoil the good life our family is enjoying." Watching the 3 of them, a happy little family enjoying themselves, I was so furious I felt like I'd lost my mind. And all I wanted was a fair deal. But years of hard work had already worn me down and ruined my health. In my emotional frenzy, I dropped dead on the spot. I died with lingering resentment at that thought. I gripped the insurance contract in my hand even tighter. Screw the fake death act. In this life, I'm going to send the 3 of you bastards straight to hell with my own hands. 2. By noon, Chun Tianyu, who had stayed up all night playing games, finally got up at a leisurely pace, He put his feet up on the table and barked orders at me like he owned the place. Mom, bring my meal in here. The dining room's too hot. I'm eating in my room. I couldn't be bothered to deal with him and just kept head down packing my things. Someone like Chintianyu, that worthless piece of trash, didn't deserve another ounce of kindness from me. Thinking about how in my last life he'd shown his shameless, ungrateful, true colors, and that he even had the blood of a mistress running through his veins made me sick to my stomach. Chintianyu waited a while and saw that nothing happened, so he shuffled over to me in his slippers, grumbling and swearing all the way. Are you deaf? Didn't you hear me talking to you? I told you to bring the food to my room. Without saying a word, I grabbed Chen Fei's razor and hurled it straight at him. Death my ass. Who do you think you're talking to? I'm your mother, not your servant. Have you got the nerve to boss me around? The food's on the table. Eat it if you want. Chun Tianyu was completely stunned by my scolding. The razor smashed at his feet and shattered into pieces all over the floor. Chen Tianyu was badly shaken. He never expected his mother, who had always been so hard-working and accommodating, to suddenly blow up. He even wanted to snap back, but when he saw my murderous glare and the watch still in my hand, it was clear that if he said another word, he'd get hit again. Chen Tianyu swallowed his words furious. He went back to his room and ordered takeout for himself. It was almost like he was giving me the silent treatment for several days in a row. Chen Tianyu didn't even step out of his room. The place was practically turning into a dump, and he didn't seem to care anyway. He had me, this old housekeeper, to clean up after him, so he could make as much of a mess as he wanted. That suited me just fine, with nobody bothering me. I spent the next few days contacting realtors to look at places, renting an apartment, and shipping my things over all in one smooth go. Once Chin Fei was dead, I'd turn right around and sell this house. Not only would I walk away with the money and live it up, but Chen Tianyu would never find me, his mom, again to play the victim and beg for support. Crack! On the day after Chin Fei left, thunder and rain outside the house were crashing down with deafening force. I hummed to myself as I sat on the sofa, scrolling on my phone in a pretty good mood. At some point, Chen Tianyu came out of his room, reeking of sour, stale odor. He kicked at the edge of the sofa and said in a nasty tone, "Hey, give me some money. I can't even afford takeout anymore." I didn't even lift my eyes as I replied, "No money. If you want money, earn it yourself." Chun Tianyu glared at me. I'm still a student. Where am I supposed to get money? Before Dad left, he told you to take good care of me. Is this how you've been taking care of me all this time? Let me tell you, you'll regret this someday. If something happens to Dad, I'll be your only support and the only thing you have left to cling to. By then, you won't be able to be nice to me enough. Hearing Chun Tianyu say that, I let out a scornful laugh. Then wait until your dad actually dies. As soon as he finished speaking, my phone rang. The moment I answered, I heard a very familiar female voice on the other end. Wang Yukin. Hello, I'm a nurse at XX Hospital in City A. We're calling to ask you to come identify your husband's remains. Mr. Chen Fei has just drowned to death. 3. The voice on the other end was very loud. After hearing that, Chun Tianyu watched my reaction with barely concealed excitement. Then he put on a grieving expression and asked me, "Mom, something really happened to Dad. What should we do? Let's hurry to the hospital and see what's going on." I glanced at him. His acting was way too over the top. I hung up the phone and brushed it off. Don't bother. It's a scam call. No need to answer it. Chin Tianyu was completely stunned. How come I wasn't playing by the usual script? Less than 2 minutes later, the call came in again from the other end. I hung up again. Wang Yuking called again. After being put through this twice, Wang Yuking's voice was practically spitting fire by the time she finally called to inform me. I just brushed her off. You say he's dead, and he's dead. Who do you think you are? The king of hell. Is there a death certificate or not? What good are photos? I want the original. Send it to my house with the official seal. Then I'll believe you're not a scammer. Wang Yuking had no choice but to have a courier deliver the death certificate to my door. Seeing that death certificate stamped with a bright red seal, I stood there in a daze for a long time, my whole body trembling uncontrollably. Qin Tianyu, standing nearby, secretly delighted, thinking I had finally accepted the fact that Qin Fei was dead. He began to look sorrowful and pretended to comfort me considerately. Mom, let's go to the hospital and see Dad first. From now on, it'll just be the two of us, mother and son, relying on each other. But Qin Tianyu didn't know that I was trembling, not from grief, but from excitement, because by now I had successfully dragged everyone into this mess. Falsifying a death certificate would make her, Wang Yuking, a nurse at the hospital, criminally liable. I lowered my head, my voice choking up. Tianyu, Mom doesn't believe it. Mom doesn't believe your father would just leave us so easily. I'll go take a look first. Once I see your father and make sure, I'll let you know. You're still young and Mom feels for you. After saying that, I shut the death certificate into my bag and walked out the door. As soon as I left, Qin Tianyu couldn't wait to run and report back to Wang Yuqing. Mom, it's done. That bought it. She's so upset, she's trembling all over. She's driving to the hospital now. Hurry up and get Dad sedated and lying in place. By then, we'll just wait for that idiot to work like a slave for our family. But Qin Tianyu never imagined where I was actually driving to the police station. Hello, my husband is dead. I'm here to cancel his household registration. The cancellation went quickly. During that time, Qin Tianyu kept asking whether I'd reached the hospital, and I brushed him off by saying I was stuck in traffic. Then I went to the insurance company again. With the death certificate and the evidence issued by the police station, I easily collected Chen Fei's life insurance payout, $3 million in all. By the time I stepped out of the insurance company, I was grinning from ear to ear. The three great joys in life: getting promoted, getting rich, and having your husband die. I had two of them all to myself, but I hadn't even been happy for long. Qin Tianyu's call came in, and he demanded angrily, Mom, where on earth did you run off to? I'm already at the hospital. Dad really is dead. Hurry up and come say your final goodbye. I quickly pretended to be sniffing and explained. Tianyu, Mom was crying so hard just now I couldn't even hold the steering wheel steady, so I had to pull over and rest for a bit. I'm fine now. I'm on my way. Then I floored it and, on the way, made an advance booking with a civil forensic appraisal agency, commonly known as a forensic pathologist. I even called in a van full of security staff to go with me. The Miss, Lou, you're in doubt about your husband's cause of death and would like us to confirm it through an autopsy. I nodded and said, yes, sorry to trouble you, but please perform the autopsy on site. For by the time I arrived, Qin Fei was already lying in the hospital farewell hall, his head covered with a pale white cloth, his eyes tightly closed. Among the people who came, I didn't even have time to glance at Wang Yuking and Qin Tianyu beside me crying and wailing. I lunged at Qin Fei, tears streaming down my face. Honey, how could you just leave like that? What am I supposed to do left here with Tianyu all by myself? You're so heartless, seeing how heartbroken I was. Wang Yuking and Qin Tianyu exchanged a smiling glance, thinking the victory was already theirs. But soon, they couldn't smile anymore. I was so heartbroken that I actually started doing CPR on Qin Fei. My technique was all wrong. I was just brute forcing it again and again. I pounded down on Qin Fei's chest until it creaked and groaned. Just by the sound of it, I'd probably already broken two of his ribs. If I kept going, I'd probably end up killing him outright. Qin Fei, you are not allowed to die. I'll save you. You will wake up. You have to. Qin Tianyu hurried over to stop me. Like I cared. With such a golden opportunity, I was going to beat this bastard to death. I shoved Qin Tianyu aside and raised my hand to slap Qin Fei across the face. Qin Fei, how could you be so heartless? You're just going to dump me like this. I'm going to slap you awake. Open your eyes and look at me. I kept slapping him again and again. Wang Yuking, standing nearby, hurried over to stop me, afraid I'd slap Qin Fei back to his senses. I kept going until Qin Fei's pale face was flushed red. Only after Wang Yuking and Qin Tianyu teamed up to hold me back did I finally stop. Wang Yuking quickly said, Ms. Liu, I understand how you feel, but the dead deserve respect. Let your husband go in peace. You still have a son to think about. You'll need to raise him well and later help him buy a house and a car. You'll still have a lot on your shoulders. Qin Tianyu also hurried over and said, Yeah, Mom, Dad drowned, and now I can only count on you. The tuition and living expenses for college and the money to buy a house and a car in the future. Mom, right now you're my only support, so you absolutely cannot collapse on me. Coincidentally, I saw a job at the hospital cleaning toilets, and it doesn't require any education or work experience. So maybe you could. I smacked Chun Tianyu hard on the back of the head, and my palm went numb from the blow. The pain almost brought tears to Chin Tianyu's eyes. What right do you have to hit me? Even Wang Yaking, standing nearby, hurriedly shouted, Are you out of your mind? Why are you hitting the kid? That just gave me the excuse. I shot back at her on the spot. I hate you because you deserved it. Your dad's cause of death hasn't even been fully investigated yet, and you're already thinking of ordering your mom around. And this is my son. I can hit him whenever I want. You're just a little nurse. What do you think you are? Mind your own business. So you say he drowned, and that's that. What if my husband was killed by someone else? Let me tell you, don't think I'm easy to fool. I've called in a forensic pathologist. We'll do an autopsy on the spot and determine the cause of death. As soon as I opened the door, the forensic pathologist and bodyguards, who had been waiting outside for quite some time, filed in one after another. They came in with the tools and got ready to perform the autopsy. Wang Yuking and Qin Tianyu's faces changed immediately. Whether Qin Fei was alive or dead, they knew better than anyone. They hadn't expected me to even bring in a forensic pathologist. Wang Yuking quickly said with a flattering smile, Ms. Liu, don't worry. We're a hospital. We would never lie. Besides, an autopsy is an insult to the body. Just let your husband go in peace. Qin Tianyu also stepped in to stop me. Mom, how could you let these people dissect Dad? The hospital has already issued a death certificate. What exactly are you still worried about? Cover him with a white sheet already. Tell the coroner to get lost, and let Dad rest in peace. I sneered inwardly. I was giving him peace. So who was going to give me, from my previous life, a moment's peace? I turned and said directly to the coroner behind me, And the spouse and I have the right to decide. Perform the autopsy on the spot. Move. Qin Tianyu and Wang Yaking still tried to rush over and stop them, but the bodyguards I hired held them down tightly. This wasn't an autopsy at all. This is a live dissection. Once they make a move, even a living person could be cut open as a corpse. But the two of them couldn't break free and could only watch helplessly as the lead forensic examiner raised the sharp scalpel in a flash of cold light. The blade went straight for Qin Fei's heart. The next second, it would tear through Chen Fei's flesh. Wang Yaking struggled and roared out, No, I was lying. Chen Fei isn't dead. 5. In an instant, it was as if the air in the farewell hall had gone still. After a long while, I let out a soft laugh. I know. Wang Yaking and Qin Tianyu turned to me in disbelief and demanded, You knew all along, and you still let. I cast them a disdainful glance and said with a smile to the forensic pathologist and the bodyguards, Thanks, everyone. The performance fee and labor costs will be transferred to your accounts later. For coming out in this downpour, I'll pay double. The crowd dispersed in ones and twos, and only the 4 of us were left in the farewell hall looking at Chen Fei's body under the white sheet. I nodded toward Wang Yaking. Wake him up. What a great plan. Qin Fei came up with that, didn't he? Why don't we have a proper talk? One shot of the drug went in, and Chen Fei slowly came to. And the moment he opened his eyes and saw Wang Yaking, he grabbed her hand and said excitedly, How did it go? That believed it, right? She was on her knees, crying her eyes out beside me, then finally decided she'd dutifully support our Tianyu. The more Chen Fei talked, the more off Wang Yaking's expression became. Then his eyes landed on me, standing off to the side, and he jumped in shock. What the hell? What are you doing here? Just as Qin Fei was totally baffled. Chin Tianyu suddenly spoke up to explain. Dad, she already knows. Seeing me smiling smugly at him, Chin Fei figured he had nothing left to lose. He grabbed Wang Yuking's hand and comforted Chin Tianyu. So what if she knows? At worst, I'll divorce her. I've wanted out of this marriage for a long time. If it weren't for the fact that her family has someone in a high-ranking position who could pull strings for me, do you think I'd marry her? He then looked at me mockingly. Your wife already retired last month, didn't she? Now that you found out, I can't be bothered to keep up the pretense with you. Let's go file the divorce papers today. Chin Fei's words were so absurd they almost made me laugh. Did he think faking death was some kind of game? Playing house? The moment Wang Yuking issued me that death certificate, he had no way back. No need, didn't you know? We're already divorced. If one spouse dies, the marriage is automatically considered dissolved. Chin Fei looked at me with the kind of expression you'd give an idiot. Can't you see? I'm not dead yet. Don't even think about tricking me into not getting a divorce. I'm telling you, once we're divorced, I'll go straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau with Yuking to get our marriage certificate. Then we'll throw the grandest wedding imaginable and drive you crazy. Didn't you know? Tianyu isn't even adopted by me. I followed Chin Fei's smug gaze and looked at Chin Tianyu. He lifted his chin, wearing a proud look on his face. Getting up, he walked over to Wang Yuking's side and said to me, "This is my real mother." Chin Tianyu stared at me excitedly. He was waiting for the next second when my face would twist into utter shock and heartbreak. But there was nothing at all. I just watched them calmly, numb and expressionless. It felt like watching a comedy act that wasn't even funny. Not bad. The whole family's finally reunited, aside from not being able to appear in the same household registry. Everything's perfect. Chin Fei frowned, dimly sensing that something was off. He asked me tentatively, "What do you mean?" I shook my head with a smile and tossed the copy of the cancellation of household registration certificate in front of him. I mean that although you're still alive, in the eyes of the law, you're already dead. Chen Fei still haven't figured it out. Right now, you're an illegal resident. 6. Chen Fei's face went pale in an instant. Wang Yuqing, standing nearby, immediately realized what was going on and pointed at me, cursing. "It was you who told me to get that death certificate for you. You had the police cancel your household registration. What a vicious scheme you have. Woman." Chin Tianyu also caught on and hurriedly added, "I was wondering why she was so late getting to the hospital. I got here before she did, and this is where they were waiting for us all along." I tilted my head, completely unfazed by their accusations. She said kindly, "You can have your identity restored, but Wang Yuqing, who issued your death certificate, will probably be going to prison. Oh, and one more thing. I forgot to tell you that the contract you signed before you left wasn't a property contract. It was an insurance policy. If you restore your identity, you'll also be going in for insurance fraud. The amount isn't big, so you'll be out after 25 years. By then, when you get married, I'll remember to send you a wedding gift." Having said that, I picked up my bag and left. That left the three of them staring at one another, their faces livid. That very night, Chen Fei couldn't hold back and called me, "Lu Yaqing, what exactly are you trying to do?" After my household registration was canceled, I couldn't use any apps anymore, not even Alipay or WeChat. The HR department at my company even said my social security status had suddenly run into problems, and I couldn't even pay my taxes properly. They told me to get it sorted out within 3 days or not to come to work anymore. "You need to correct this right now." I burst out laughing and shot back at Chin Fei. "What? Just what you were planning to do to me all along. Make my life miserable. Besides, do you think the police station is run by my family? I say correct it, and they'll just correct it." My careless attitude only made Chen Fei furious. "Just say you made a mistake, or that you processed a fake death certificate, and have them restore my household registration. Let me tell you, Lu Yajing, if you dare ruin me, I'll make sure you don't get off easy, either." But I only laughed even harder. "What the hell are you barking about? An illegal resident." Zhan Xiong hung up cleanly and without hesitation. I couldn't care less. And I wasn't afraid of Chen Fei's threats. After all these years of marriage, I know exactly what kind of person he is. One who bullies the weak and fears the strong. A coward who only looks out for himself. At this point, he was probably raging helplessly at home, furious enough to smash his phone. Sure enough, Chen Fei could only take out his anger on a pillow. After just a couple of hits, he caught a foul odor drifting from inside the house, absolutely nauseating. Following the smell, he found that it was coming from Chun Tianyu's room. Tianyu, what's going on? Why is your room full of trash? You've made the whole house stink. Chen Tianyu had just curled up on the sofa and ordered takeout when it suddenly dawned on him. Damn, I forgot to clean up. I was planning to get that old hag to clean it up for me, but then she went menopausal on me, grabbed your razor, and threw it at me. I was so pissed I couldn't be bothered with her, and the trash has just been piling up ever since. I'll have Mom clean it up for me later. She's never cleaned my room before, not once since I was born. Chen Fei shot Chen Tianyu a glare. He snapped angrily, "Get your ass up and clean it yourself. Your mom's on the late shift today and won't be back. The family's barely getting by on the overtime pay she brings home. She doesn't have time to clean your room." Chen Tianyu was left with no choice. I could only grimace and pinching my nose clean the room. Sigh, if only that old woman were still around. 7. Early the next morning, my phone was bombarded with calls one after another. At first, I thought it was just some spam texts, but then the messages kept coming so fast that my phone never stopped vibrating, and I realized something was off. The moment I answered a stream of filthy abuse came pouring out of the receiver. Finally got through. "Lu Yujing, pay up. Your husband owes me more than 1,000,000 yuan. What are you pretending to be deaf and dumb for? Your old man's dead, but you're still alive. You're his wife, so you have to pay his debt. Otherwise, I'll come to your house tomorrow and smash it to pieces." I belatedly realized that what Chen Fei meant yesterday when he said on the phone that he'd make my life miserable was this: taking out a loan in both spouses' names. But since he was already dead, the creditor could only come to me for repayment. In my previous life, they used exactly this trick to force me to slog myself to death, repaying over 1,000,000 in debt for him. It wasn't until he showed up with Wang Yuking and smugly told me the truth that I realized it had all been a scam. Chen Fei had deliberately found a debt collection crew to set me up. They made me work myself to the bone every month to pay off the debt, and in the end, the money was split among them. How much of a cut is he giving you? 70 to 30, but Chen Fei isn't that generous. He should be taking 80 and giving you 20. Right, after you got the money out of me, you all split it 80 to 20. For this one, 2,000,000 yuan I owe you. You'd end up with 240. 000 yuan in hard-earned fees. Am I right? He was completely stunned. He never expected that I actually knew the truth. In my previous life, I also struggled with it. Once a person dies, their debts die with them. As long as you give up the deceased's inheritance, you don't have to shoulder their debts. But in the end, Chun Tianyu still talked me into it. "Mom, this house is the only thing Dad left behind for us to remember him by. If we give up half, those people will definitely sue us and force us to sell the house, then split the money in half. This is our home. Mom, we can't live without a home." So, I decided to take on the more than 1,000,000 in outside debt and keep our home. Looking back now, I really was laughably stupid. What Chun Tianyu meant back then was not that we couldn't live without a home, but that he couldn't live without that more than 1,000,000. "Why you? How do you know?" I let out a sneer and replied, "That's none of your business. I'm just warning you both. This trick won't work on me because I've already sold this house." As soon as he heard that, Chun Fei snatched the phone and asked me in disbelief, "What? Sold it? What right did you have to secretly sell our house?" I simply snapped a photo of the sales contract and sent it over. The date was fresh. It was just yesterday afternoon. "Because you're dead. That's why. I own half. If you died, your half would go to your spouse, children, or parents. Your parents passed away years ago, so by law, the house sold for 2,000,000. I get 5,000,000, and Chen Tianyu gets 500. 000 later on. I'll have a lawyer hand the money over to Chin Tianyu. Beep, beep, beep. Chin Fei was practically going crazy. He'd never imagined I'd be so resourceful. Not only did I get his household registration canceled in a flash, I even sold the house that fast. And now, he was nowhere to be found. The only number that could still reach me could be blocked at any moment. God knows what on earth he was supposed to do now. But as if things weren't bad enough, no sooner had the lawyer handed Chen Tianyu the bank card with 500,000 yuan than the buyer turned around and kicked them out. Wang Yuking had originally been thinking, once you've gotten rid of me, the legal wife, you can move into the big house without a hitch. To her surprise, it was Chen Fei and Chen Tianyu, hauling in bag after bag. They kept trying to squeeze into her rented place. As soon as Wang Yuking learned about it, she blew up at Chen Fei. 50 grand is nothing. Can that even buy a house? You can't even rent a decent place for long on that kind of money. Chen Fei, Tianyu's college tuition and living expenses, plus our future home, our car, and our retirement savings. All of that depends on this 50 grand, even if it were in US dollars. It wouldn't last long if you spend it like that. Chen Tianyu, standing nearby, also put pressure on Chen Fei. Yeah, Dad, if this keeps up, we won't be able to go on living like this. At first, Chen Fei didn't think this was that big of a deal. If the old company let him go, he'd just find another job. Even if he got blacklisted and couldn't land a full-time job, he could still find some part-time work. Right, he had already worked his way up to middle management before. So taking a step down and becoming an ordinary wage slave shouldn't be a problem. But reality slapped him hard across the face. Every year, 12 million college graduates enter the job market. Why would any company want a nearly 50-year-old man who wasn't stable and couldn't keep up with the grind? He was picked over and passed over until the very end. It was only under the pressure of making a living that Chen Fei reluctantly took the job. Not only was he swamped to the point of exhaustion, but he was also earning less than half of what Wang Yuking made. Wang Yuking had originally just wanted to marry Chen Fei so she could live a comfortable life. Now, though, it had turned out the other way around. She was the one supporting him. The more she looked at Chen Fei, the more he rubbed her the wrong way. Yuking, is there anything to eat at home? I was so busy tonight, I didn't even have time to eat. Wang Yuking had just gotten off the night shift and was exhausted to the bone. And when she heard Chen Fei's question, all the frustration she'd been holding back suddenly exploded. The hell there is. Let me tell you, I'm not some stay-at-home housewife like Lu Yujing. I have to work. I have to earn money to support the family. How dare you even ask me whether there's food at home? You don't even know what you're busy with all day. How can there be such a useless man like you? Chen Fei was feeling irritated, too, at work. He got chewed out by a boss 2 generations younger than him. When he got home, his wife picked up where the boss left off. Am I the only one working hard? I'm at overtime this late every day, too, and I'm not having any easy time, either. Besides, if it weren't for being with you, how could I have possibly lost my job and given up my household registration just so you wouldn't have to go to prison? I had to work like an undocumented person, and now you're treating me like this. I'm completely disappointed in you. Hearing this, Wang Yujing's anger only flared higher. So you wouldn't go to prison. Chen Fei, don't dress it up and make it sound so noble. Once we go to the police station to restore my household registration, if they investigate, you'll end up in prison, too. For me, no, this is clearly for yourself. This is my home, and I'm the one renting this place. If you can't stand me that much, then get out. I'd like to see who would rent a place to a man who doesn't even have an ID card once I'm gone. You can't even stay in a hotel. You'd have to turn into a homeless bum. Chen Fei and Wang Yujing kept trading blows, and their argument grew more and more intense. In the end, Chen Fei stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Wang Yujing was still hurling hysterical insults. Go on, then, if you've got the guts, don't ever come back. You're living off me and eating my food, staying in my house, and you still dare to yell at me. What are you, Useless trash. Pa Chun Fei had spent years as a manager at the company, and before that he'd had me, a full-time housewife, taking care of everything at home. He had never been treated like this before. Furious as he was, he also felt a deep sense of regret. With the last bit of cash he had left on him, he bought 2 bottles of liquor from a convenience store. He got completely wasted. Chun Fei began to miss the days he had spent with me, ordinary, warm, and happy. The more he thought about it, the more he started calling me, to harass me, yaxing, I miss you so much. Back when I came home drunk, you used to take care of me. You'd wipe my face, save me dinner, and I keep thinking, if none of all this had ever happened between us, and we still had Tianyu, we'd probably still be living happily together now. Yaxing, I really miss you, listening to the drunk, slurred voice of the man on the other end of the phone. Does he think he's being all emotional? But back then, he wouldn't even give me the time of day. Small town man who married up, looking down on me one moment, and then trying to ride on my coattails the next. The whole guy was painfully awkward. Now that no one's waiting on him anymore, he's nostalgic for the days when he could live like an emperor. Chun Fei kept rambling for only a couple of sentences before I hung up on him. With nowhere else to go, he had no choice but to stagger back, reeking of alcohol, to Wang Yueqing's rented apartment. The conflict flared up again. The argument turned into a chaotic, all-out mess. Tensions at home kept mounting, and even Chun Fei's work started going badly. After being scolded for days on end, Chun Fei set his sights on Chun Tianyu's 500,000 yuan. Tianyu, lend Dad that 500,000 yuan for now. Dad wants to start a business. 9. Chun Tianyu looked his now down-and-out father up and down. He refused without the slightest mercy. Get lost. I'm keeping this 500,000 yuan for college. You're blacklisted now, and you don't even have the ability to make money, let alone start a business. You can't even get a business license. He was hurt to hear that his once-adored son had grown so resentful of him. Chun Fei felt even worse inside, but with the situation pressing down on him, he could only say it as nicely as he could. Tianyu, Dad really has no choice now. If it weren't for wanting you to have a good life, would I have ended up like this? Take out the money and think of it as helping Dad out. I promise I'll pay you back before school starts. But Chun Tianyu wasn't having any of it and flatly refused with a cold face. No, I already made plans with my friends to go out and have fun this summer. If I lend you the money, what am I supposed to do? What the hell do you mean have fun? Having fun matters more than your dad. They were talking past each other. Chun Fei and Chun Tianyu had barely exchanged a couple of words before they started arguing. But financial strength determines a family standing. Chun Fei was furious now, but Chun Tianyu wasn't afraid of him. With a dark face, he shut him straight out of the room. I don't have a useless dad like you. Don't think you can fool me. You're almost 50. You say you're starting a business, but really it's just because the job market has already given up on you. Not only can you not help me buy a house or a car, you might even end up needing me to support you in the future. And now you've got your sights on my 500,000 yuan. Get lost already. Don't make me get rough. Chun Fei's pride was wounded once again. How did it end up like this? Why did it end up like this? Back then, he staged his fake death because he felt he had no dignity living with me. Every time he saw my face, he would be reminded of how, before our marriage, he had swallowed his pride to chase after me and beg me until he finally married me. He never expected that life now would be 10 times more humiliating than it was back then. Wang Yueqing looked down on him and mocked him. Even his own son had started to despise him. Chun Fei started drinking heavily. He got drunk every day to escape reality, and I never answered the harassing calls he made to me again. Wang Yueqing was disgusted by how hopeless he was and locked him out, refusing to let him back in. Chun Fei could only sleep in the hallway, where the security guards chased him away as if he were a vagrant. Then he heard from someone that a paternity test could prove his identity and help him go to the police station to restore his household registration. So he secretly took some of Chen Tianyo's hair for a paternity test. But that test ended up causing trouble. Paternity excluded. Those glaring red words left Chen Fei so shocked that he couldn't say a word. So that means Chen Tianyu isn't Chen Fei's son. Not only has he been raising someone else's son all these years, but that bastard child even ended up ruining him like this. Chen Fei lost his temper and stormed straight to the hospital to kick up a scene. He went to Wang Yuqing for an explanation. Chen Fei walked up and slapped Wang Yuqing across the face twice. Smack, smack. He knocked her to the ground and started kicking and punching her while cursing. You filthy goddammit. If I hadn't found out, how long were you planning to keep this from me? You Chen Tianyu isn't my son at all. So why the hell should he get my 500,000? Why? It's all you mother and son who ruined me and turned me into this. I used to be a top official, and now look at me. I have to live in hiding every day like a rat in a ditch. Wang Yuqing watched him acting like a maniac. She had already had enough and immediately started cursing him back. You weren't the one who wanted it. You're just cheap. 10. You kept clinging to me and tricked me into staying with you for so many years with no status at all. I can't even see my own son openly. And now I still have to look at you. This useless bum, getting drunk at home and getting on my nerves. You think I don't hate you? Damn it. If I hadn't seen you had a little money back then, why would I have been willing to stay with you? If I can be a mistress for you, then I can be a mistress for someone else. 2. As they kept arguing, the two of them started fighting. Of course, the people at the hospital called the police. And Chen Fei, blinded by rage, didn't care about anything else and confessed everything in one go. I'd rather go in and do time than keep living this dog's life. That's good, just as he wished. The police immediately arrested Chen Fei and Wang Yuqing. The person who had originally produced a death certificate and received a huge payout actually came back to life, which immediately caught the insurance company's attention. I wasn't greedy, so I promptly returned the insurance money on my own since I was only a passive participant in the insurance fraud. I was not involved in the trial. Wang Yuqing was sentenced to 3 years in prison for falsifying a death certificate and illegally using the hospital seal. Chen Fei was also brought to justice on suspicion of insurance fraud, but because I ultimately returned the insurance payout, he wasn't severely punished. In the end, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Even in prison, Chen Fei managed to sue and recover the 500,000 yuan that Chen Tianyu had taken. Chen Tianyu had no money, and both of his parents were in prison. It was only then that he learned he wasn't his biological son. After thinking it over, he ended up thinking of me, his bargain bin mom. Mom, I was wrong. Dad's in prison. You're the only one I have left now. I promise. From now on, I'll only recognize you as my mom. I'll take care of you when you're old, and I'll definitely treat you well. I'm about to start college. I let out a scornful laugh, honestly impressed by Chen Tianyo's shamelessness. No, don't call me mom. It makes me sick. You're not without a mother, just without a father. Your fake dad is in prison, and your real dad died young. Instead of wasting time here, think about how you're going to pay your tuition. Beep, beep, beep. I hung up quickly and immediately blocked and deleted Chen Tianyu. He was used to living like a young master at home, and after just a couple of days of his summer job, he couldn't stand the workload or the attitude he got. So, he had no choice but to go back home and lie around. But even lying around costs money. Chen Tianyu had no money, and he couldn't get in touch with me either. So he started thinking of crooked schemes. And then one day, after seeing a high-paying job ad in Southeast Asia online, he vanished without a trace. It wasn't until later, when I was living away from home, that I got a call from Chen Tianyu. Mom, please save me. Can you transfer me 500,000 to help me hit my quota? If not, they're going to beat me with an electric baton and throw me into a water dungeon to have crocodiles tear me apart. I gave a soft laugh and said, I told you not to call me Mom. Disgusting. Someone like you is such a beast that I'd be worried even the crocodiles wouldn't eat you. You want 500,000. I'll just burn you 500,000 in cash. That's faster. I hadn't even finished speaking when a dull thud of a stick striking flesh sounded from the other end of the line, followed by Chun Tianyo's agonized screams. The call was abruptly cut off. I smiled, gazing at the beautiful scenery of the place I was staying. I pulled out my old SIM card and replaced it with a new one. Then I let out a long sigh. In my past life, I was a wife and a mother, always forgetting to stop and truly live as myself for once. So, in this life, I'm only going to be myself. The end. That's it for the first story. Don't go anywhere. The next one is even more exciting. On the day the 3-time Best Actress winner announced her wedding date, her husband of 10 years killed me. He blamed me for taking pity on him and helping him back then, which led his blood-sucking mother to set her sights on me and force him to pursue me. As a result, he ended up missing out on his true love. After being reborn, I returned to the day I saved him from domestic violence. This time, I spared his pride, respected his fate, and walked past without looking back. On our 10th wedding anniversary, Pei Mingyan killed me with his own hands at lunch. Something was off about him. He was smiling, but there was an inexplicable sadness in his expression. I immediately noticed the change in his mood. What's wrong? Got something on your mind? Pei Mingyan didn't answer me. Jiang Mingyue, do you know what day it is today? I curved my lips. Isn't it our wedding anniversary? You want me to guess when it's this obvious? Pei Mingyan lowered his eyes and took an elegant bite of steak. Today is the day Shiryu gets married. Hearing those 3 words, Jiang Shiryu, my smile gradually froze, and the fragrant steak in my mouth suddenly lost all appeal. He had loved Jiang Shiryu for a full 10 years. Every night when depression drove him to the brink of madness, blood would spill across the floor, yet every inch of it was covered with Jiang Shiryu's name. And the only way I could calm him down was by pretending to be Jiang Shiryu. Sometimes, I didn't even know whether my persistence was the right choice. I said nothing because I didn't know what to say. Pei Mingyan looked at me calmly, his manner gloomy, a hard-to-read emotion flowing in his eyes. You plain toegives beschädigt. Before I could think it through, suddenly a sharp pain shot through my lower abdomen. The pain was so intense, I collapsed to the floor. Cold sweat broke out all over me. Pei Mingyan got to his feet and crouched in front of me. His icy fingers brushed lightly against my face, his voice gentle, like a lover's whisper. This is the wedding gift I gave her. What did he mean? Was Pei Mingyan going to kill me for Jiang Shiryu? My fingers clenched so tightly they went white, and I forced out through gritted teeth. W.Y. Pei. Mingyan's eyes were dull and lifeless, because my only light is gone, and I no longer have the right to like her. But I was afraid that after I die, you'd hurt her again. So I came up with a way to solve both problems at once. Have you die with me? The pain was so overwhelming I couldn't say a word. My heart was stabbed and bled profusely. Instinct took over, and I clutched Pei Mingyan's coat tightly. But he peeled my fingers off one by one. He broke my last lifeline. Jiang Mingyue, I know you mean well, but I despise you. I despise how you humiliate me by giving me money every time. And I despise the way you look down on people with that air of superiority. A flash of hatred flickered in Pei Mingyan's eyes. I often wonder, if my mother hadn't seen you that day, she wouldn't have forced me to marry you. Then Shiryu and I wouldn't have missed each other for so many years. All of this is because of you. Jiang Mingyue, why couldn't you have died sooner? Only then did I realize that my kindness toward him had made him hate me this much. He really managed to keep up the act for 10 whole years. I was laughing so hard tears were streaming down my face. The burning in my stomach grew more and more intense. And just before I died, my mother's sharp face suddenly flashed before me. Jiang Mingyue, if you insist on marrying him, then from now on don't call me your mother. I'm sorry, Mom. I shouldn't have defied you. If I could do it all over again, I would never choose to marry Pei Mingyan. When I opened my eyes again, I was somehow in the alley in front of Pei Mingyan's house. Had I been reborn? Before I could even feel happy, I heard a woman cursing angrily not far away. You worthless thing. You can't even keep an eye on your own father. You're completely useless. I really regret giving birth to you. There was also the sound of a stick striking flesh. I looked up at 18. Pei Mingyan was being beaten by his mother with a wooden stick, rolling all over the ground. The tall, thin boy wore a shabby t-shirt, and his exposed skin was covered in bruises of blue and purple. I remembered that in my previous life, the first time I got involved with Pei Mingyan was right here, seeing him being brutally beaten without fighting back. I rushed over without a second thought and stood in front of him. Auntie, why are you hitting someone? His mother had been unrelenting, but the moment she saw that I was dressed in expensive clothes, her expression broke into a bright smile, and she said it was all a misunderstanding. Mingyan, is this your classmate? Why you introduce her to Mom? I didn't like the sharp, snide look on his mother's face, so I forcibly dragged Pei Mingyan to a small clinic on the next street to have his injuries treated. As the old man was treating the wounds, he gossiped and asked about Pei Mingyan's family, whether his dad had run off with a mistress, whether his mom had lost money and sold the family home. Back then, I only complained to the old man that Pei Mingyan's mother was too extreme, completely unaware that he had already bowed his head in shame. I'm sure Pei Mingyan started resenting me then. So this time, I won't help him anymore. I glanced over coldly and was about to stride past, but then Pei Mingyan's weak voice came from behind me. Jiang Mingyue. I ran even faster. I dashed back into the school in one breath. At noon, I didn't go to the cafeteria for lunch and instead returned to the classroom. Sitting back down at my seat, I opened my textbook with a sense of being worlds apart from everything before. This time, I must study hard and make up for the regrets of my past life. Regrets. When the bell rang, Pei Mingyan and Jiang Shiyu came in from outside chatting and laughing, the tenderness in his eyes almost overflowing. After Jiang, Shiyu returned to her seat. She still made a lip-reading gesture at Pei Mingyan, reminding him to watch his arm. But I clearly remembered that they weren't even this close yet then. It suddenly hit me. Pei Mingyan had just called my name, yet earlier, when he had been beaten to the brink of death, he hadn't made a sound. The only explanation was that he had been reborn, too, but I didn't take it to heart, because during the first class of the afternoon, the homeroom teacher would let us choose our seats based on our grades, and Pei Mingyan and I would become desk mates. It was at that very moment that the gears of fate began to turn. Just like in my previous life, our whole class was called outside, and he read out the names according to the monthly exam rankings. Jiang Shiyu was first in the class and chose the second row in the middle. Pei Mingyan was in 14th place. By the time he went in, the seats around Jiang Shiyu had all been taken, so Pei Mingyan could only choose the seat next to her. It was in the 4th row of Group 4. From his angle, he could catch a clear view of Jiang Shiyu's side profile at a glance. I used to think he picked it at random, but now that I think about it, he must have planned it all along. Jiang Shiyu was the only person who had ever been kind to him before me. Beautiful, kind-hearted, and an excellent student, so it wasn't surprising that he would end up liking Jiang Shiyu. Soon, the homeroom teacher called my name as the last one to choose. There was no option left except the seat next to Pei Mingyan. He wore the same clothes all the time, so the whole class assumed he was dirty and didn't want to sit with him. I was the only one who was so careless. Later, after I fell for Pei Mingyan and learned that his family wasn't well off, I used my pocket money to buy him a lot of the brands my cousin liked to wear. My kindness somehow shattered his poor, fragile pride. All I can say is that some people just don't deserve my kindness. I glanced at Pei Mingyan. He didn't look at me, as if he had already expected me to sit next to him. But I didn't want to make the same mistake again. I raised my hand to the homeroom teacher. Teacher, I don't want to sit next to Pei Mingyan. Hearing this, Pei Mingyan turned back and looked at me in confusion. The homeroom teacher didn't want to set a precedent. Jiang Mingyue, once your grades improve next time, you can choose. This time, just sit next to classmate Pei. I insisted. No, sitting next to him will only distract me from my studies. A few scattered snickers broke out in the classroom, as if I'd just said something ridiculous. Jiang Shiyu, who was sitting in front of me, also shot me a meaningful glance. It didn't matter if they didn't believe me, because I was confident, just as I had once gotten into med school for Pei Mingyan. I could also get into a university for myself. The homeroom teacher adjusted his glasses. Classmate Pei's grades are more than enough to help you study. If there's anything you don't understand, wouldn't it be nice to just ask him directly? I didn't have the patience to keep locking horns with the homeroom teacher. If you don't agree, I'll have my mom call you. The homeroom teacher immediately stopped trying to talk me out of it. He had the girl in the third to last row switch seats with me, and the moment I sat down, I got serious about studying. Although I still had memories from my past life, I'd been away from student life for so long that I had to review a lot of the material from scratch. Once you dive headfirst into the sea of knowledge, you'll find there's never enough time. I didn't even hear the bell for the end of class. It wasn't until Pai Minjun knocked hard on my desk. Jiang Minwu, I need to talk to you. I hadn't originally planned to go, but I figured it would be better to clear the air sooner rather than later. I walked with Pai Minjun to the end of the hallway. You've been reborn, too, haven't you? Pai Minjun asked me. Expressionless, I didn't hide it and just nodded. He clenched both fists, glaring at me with a dark, hostile look. I was the one who killed you. If you want revenge, take it out on me. I cut him off impatiently. Don't worry, I won't take revenge on anyone. Dying at your hands was my own fault. If I get a second chance, I only want to study hard and make up for my regrets from before. My mom tried to talk me into breaking up with Pai Minjun. My coworkers tried to talk me out of it, too. Everyone around me tried to talk me out of it. They all said Pai Minjun didn't like me, and I was the only one stubbornly going my own way. So this ending was exactly what I deserved. I had no right to hate anyone else. Pai Minjun stared at me in a daze, as if he couldn't believe those words had come out of my mouth. But I had no intention of explaining myself to him. Instead of wasting time on that, I'd rather do a couple more practice questions. Just as I turned to leave, Pai Minjun called out to me again. Jiang Minwu, what happened before was my fault. Once I'm together with Sherwu, fine, I'll make it up to you. I turned sideways to look at my reflection in the glass and couldn't help mocking him. What? So, I can kill you first, and then apologize. Pei Mingyan froze. You still. I turned to face him. I don't need your compensation if it's money. My family has more than we can ever spend, and you don't have anything else to make it up to me with. So, I don't need it at all, and I couldn't care less. Just as Pei Mingyan had said, he wanted to make up for the regrets he had with Jiang Xiu. As soon as class was over, he'd ask me for help with a problem as an excuse to strike up conversation. I had planned to use the break to do another English reading comprehension passage, but the laughter from the front was so loud that I couldn't focus on the questions. I felt irritated, frowning. I looked over. Only then did I notice that Pei Mingyan had, for once, changed into a new outfit. Seeing me look over, Jiang Xiu kindly said, Mingyu, do you want to borrow my English notebook? I've organized the key points in it. I remember your English grades aren't very good, so this might help you improve faster. A classmate nearby sneered. It's not just her English that's bad. Her other grades are bad, too, aren't they? Forget it. Xiu, with Jiang Mingyu's grades, can she even understand it? Stop being such a do-gooder. Jiang Xiu interrupted them with a dark expression. Don't talk about Mingyu like that. What if she suddenly makes a huge leap and proves you wrong? That made me frown. My gaze swept over the classmates who had just mocked me. We weren't that close, but they didn't like me. Come to think of it, I was never the type to stir up trouble. Yet, in my last life, the whole class somehow isolated me for no reason. Aside from Pei Mingyan, no one talked to me. It was around then that I fell for Pei Mingyan. The handsome side profile of that young man, his melancholic eyes, and the warmth that slipped out so casually became the only salvation in my life. Now that I think about it, Jiang Xiu probably had a hand in stirring things up behind the scenes. In that case, there was no way I'd give her a pleasant look. I stretched my arms lazily. No need for you to worry about it. My mom hired a tutor for me. Jiang Xiu lived in my house. So how could she not know I was saying that on purpose? She bit her lip in grievance. Mingyue, I don't mean anything by it. I didn't say anything else. Some people just don't understand plain speech. Pei Mingyan couldn't bear to see the person he liked being rejected, so he called my name again. Jiang Mingyue, Shiyu kindly lent you her notes. Even if you don't appreciate it, you should at least say thank you. She lent them to me, so does that mean I have to accept them? I only gave him one cold word. Get lost. After school, I was packing up my things. Jiang Shiyu walked up to me, her fingers gripping her backpack straps so tightly that she asked softly, Mingyue, can I go with you this time? I always get home really late when I take the bus. I was thinking about which books to take home and didn't even look up. We're not going the same way. Rejected so bluntly. Jiang Shiyu lowered her head in disappointment. She gave off a pitifully vulnerable vibe. She blinked innocently. Mingyue, do you hate me? In my past life, Jiang Shiyu and I had nothing to do with each other. Even though I disliked her, I still kept to my moral bottom line. After what just happened, who knew how many times Jiang Shiyu had stabbed me in the back? Not laying a hand on her was already generous enough. If I was going to live this life over again, all I wanted was to study hard when I ignored her. She left with red-rimmed eyes. And, of course, Pei Mingyan fell for that trick. He was almost heartbroken. Just as I stepped out of the classroom, Pei Mingyan grabbed me by the collar and dragged me into a corner. The fabric caught at my throat and I could barely breathe. Jiang Mingyue, you promised me you wouldn't bully Shiyu. I gasped. My neck flushed red. If you're sick, go see a doctor. Stop losing your mind. You're asking for death. Pei Mingyan was convinced I'd bully Jiang Shiyu, eyes red, dragged me toward the equipment room, completely ignoring my struggle. Pei Mingyan, let go of me. Just then, Zhang Xia, you came down from upstairs. She happened to see the scene. You too. Pei Mingyan let go of me as if he'd been electrocuted. I viciously stomped on his new shoe, then ran off. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Pei Mingyan bend down to wipe his new shoe. I didn't stop until I reached the school gate. My mom had arranged for a driver to pick me up, but he still hadn't arrived. While I was waiting for the ride, Pei Mingyan and Zhang Xia, you also came out of the school gate. Zhang Xia, you was the first to bring up saying goodbye. Pei Mingyan looked at her with some reluctance, and the emotions spilling from his eyes were practically tangible. In my past life, it's not that I didn't know he loved Zhang Xiaoyu. They say time can smooth out everything, and for once, I believed it. I thought I could warm Pei Mingyan's heart with sincerity, but I was wrong. His heart was harder than stone and impossible to warm. I looked away, only to see Zhang Xiaoyu walking toward me. With shameless persistence, she asked me again, Mingyu, is it really not possible for me to go with you? She had often tried to get on good terms with me before because of Pei Mingyan. I kept my distance and simply ignored her. But this time I curled my lips into a small smile and agreed readily. Sure, the one picking me up today wasn't a driver. 10 minutes later, the Mercedes from my family pulled up at the school gate. The window rolled down, revealing my mom's beautiful but sharp face. The moment Zhang Xiaoyu saw my mom, she was like a mouse seeing a cat. Her whole body started shaking. Yeah, Auntie. My mom glanced at her lightly. Don't call me Auntie. We're not that familiar. My mom didn't spare her any face at all. Zhang Xiaoyu's face turned instantly pale, and she fidgeted helplessly, picking at her palm. It looked like she might burst into tears any second. No one can beat my mom when she gets going with that razor-sharp tongue. To be fair, it wasn't really my mom's fault. Jiang Shiyu was my dad's illegitimate daughter from an affair, and on his deathbed, he forced my mom to bring her home. So, things were pretty awkward for her in my family. Seeing my mom again sent my emotions on a roller coaster. Mom, let her come home with us today. My mom just glanced at me. Get in the car. Jiang Shiyu, standing nearby with red-rimmed eyes, refused. Mingyue, I'll just take the bus. Back myself. I won't keep you and MS Nia from your time together. My mom had never liked Jiang Shiyu, and Jiang Shiyu knew better than to make things awkward. She quickly trotted off out of sight. On the way home, neither my mom nor I said a word. We just stared out at the scenery through the window. I vaguely caught sight of a familiar figure getting into a luxury car. Could it be Jiang Xiu? I still couldn't figure out what was going on. My mom got out of the car, and after a short came back and shoved a bag of things into my arms. When I looked down, it was steamed soup dumplings from Mayenji. So, my mom had taken a detour to Mayenji. Haven't you always said you wanted to eat this? I knew this meant my mom was the first to back down and make peace. My mom and I had been giving each other the cold shoulder for 2 months over my application to a university. I took a bite, and the familiar flavor filled my mouth. Because I loved their food, my mom invested in Mayenji. Thinking about the stupid things I did in my last life, I couldn't hold back my tears. My mom thought I was being bullied at school and, startled, hurried to hit the brakes. Yaya, what's wrong? I wiped away my tears, still holding a steamed bun in my mouth. Nothing. I just haven't had one in a long time, so I kind of miss it. My mom didn't buy it at all. Is someone bullying you at school? Tell me the truth, and I'll call Aunt Jiang. I took 3 bites to finish it, then shook my head. No, I was just thinking about how I kept arguing with you over university, and it makes me sad. I argued with my mom countless times, first because I couldn't get in, second because I felt my mom was insulting me. Later, after I fell for Pamingyan, I came clean to my mom and told her I wanted to apply to medical university with him that night. My mom and I had the fiercest fight of my life. Even now, I still remember the disappointment in my mom's eyes, and the first time I saw my fiercely proud mother secretly wiping away tears. My mom wiped my tears away with a tissue. If you don't want to take the university exam, Mom won't force you. I just think you're definitely capable of getting in. I sniffled. No, I promise you, I'll definitely get in. My mom didn't doubt a word I said. She smiled in relief. Good. I could tell my mom was in a really good mood on the way home. She even played a song, which was a rare thing for her. By the time my mom drove back, it was already dark. She had just parked when the Rolls-Royce beside us stopped. 2. When we saw who got out, both my mom and I froze, and Jiang Xiu across from us froze as well. A high school student got out of a luxury car. It was hard not to let the imagination run wild, but the car's owner got out. 2. Put an affectionate arm around Jiang Xiu's waist and chatted casually with my mom about company matters, smiling all the while. The man looked about 40, with a wife and daughter, and they weren't divorced. The more I looked at him, the more familiar he seemed. I asked instinctively, Uncle, do you run an entertainment company? The man smiled and said, Yes. I remembered that in my previous life, he was the sugar daddy backing Jiang Xiu, and it was also he who spent money to turn her into a rising internet sensation. Jiang Xiu's face went even paler. She hadn't expected to run into us and didn't dare lift her head, like a child who'd done something wrong. Ms. Nia Minue. My mom gave her a cold look, then took my hand and left. No need to explain it to us. Actually, I had no idea Jiang Xiu had been kept by someone since high school. She'd always given me the impression of being a pure, innocent little flower, but now it seems she was anything but pure. Maybe from the very beginning, getting my dad to accept her was all part of her plan to climb the social ladder. After all, no one wants to spend their whole life living under someone else's roof. After we got home, my mom didn't cut off Jiang Xiu's living expenses because of this. Instead, she kept giving her the usual 10,000 a month. Jiang Xiu, on the other hand, did something unheard of and knocked on my bedroom door. I saw her standing outside. What is it? Jiang Xiu bit her lip. Mingyue, could you please not tell anyone about what you saw tonight? Even if Jiang Xiu hadn't said that, I wouldn't have told anyone. After all, there was no bad blood between us. I nodded and was about to close the door when I heard Jiang Xiu continue. Mingyue, we're not the same. You were born with everything handed to you, surrounded by admiration from the start. Well, I have to rely on myself for everything. Even a few gossiping remarks can crush me. I'd love to be pampered by my family like you, and I don't want to be kept by anyone either, but I have nothing. Is she trying to guilt-trip me? My mom has already done more than enough for her, even though she can't compare to me. She has never shortchanged her when it comes to living expenses, yet she's chosen to sink so low and wrapped it all up in such a self-righteous excuse. Ridiculous beyond belief. With the intense workload of my final year of high school, I didn't have much energy to worry about anything else. Every day, I focused on drilling practice problems. I only wanted to change the fate of my previous life. On the other hand, the relationship between Pei Mingyan and Jiang Xiu grew closer and closer. During long breaks, he would buy Jiang Xiu lots of snacks, and the two of them would go to and from school together. I'd even occasionally see Pei Mingyan escort Jiang Xiu to the bus stop. When he caught me staring openly at them, Pei Mingyan instinctively pulled Jiang Xiu behind him, afraid I might do something to her. I simply looked away indifferently. Now that I was seeing this scene again, I felt nothing at all. If this had been in my past life, I definitely would have had a huge fight with Pei Mingyan, but now I was nothing more than an emotionless study machine. Still, I noticed that Pei Mingyan was wearing a branded shirt I had bought him in my previous life. I remembered that brand being very expensive. Where did he get the money? I only wondered for a split second before shifting my attention elsewhere, because the midterm results were out. I squeezed into the top 5 in class. Pei Mingyan ranked 1 spot above me, and Jiang Xiu dropped out of the top 10, and I was still several dozen points short of getting into a university. Once the scores were released, quite a few classmates suspected I had cheated, but none of them dared to say it to my face. They only whispered about it behind my back. That day, though, I came out of the restroom and passed by the office, where I overheard Jiang Xiu asking their homeroom teacher, "Teacher, how did Jiang Mingyue jump from the bottom of the class straight into the top 5? Does she have some secret study method?" She was practically snitching on me right in front of the teacher, saying that I cheated. The homeroom teacher assumed Jiang Xiu wanted to know my study methods, so she suggested that I share them at the next class meeting. That didn't achieve the effect Jiang Xiu had expected at all, so she changed her approach. "Teacher, don't you think her grades have improved way too fast in just half a month? Can she really remember that many key points?" But the homeroom teacher shut her down with a single sentence. "You should worry about why you've slipped so much first." Although I couldn't see Jiang Xiu's face, I knew she must have looked terrible, hearing footsteps. I deliberately waited for her outside. Jiang Xiu was taken aback when she saw me. "Mingyue, what are you doing here?" I glanced at her and said, "If you're going to tattle, at least do it where no one can hear you." Jiang Xiu's face suddenly flushed bright red. "Mingyue, listen to me. You've got it all wrong." I had no intention of listening to her explanation. Just as I walked out of the teaching building, someone grabbed my arm. I took a closer look. It was Pei Mingyan's mother, but in my past life, I didn't have any connection with her until college. Pei's mother awkwardly let go of my hand. "Daughter-in-law, I didn't hurt you, did I?" As soon as she spoke, a strong smell of smoke hit me in the face, and I instinctively stepped back 2 paces. Daughter-in-law. My first thought was that Pei's mother had been reborn. 2. Suppressing my disgust, I said, "Auntie, you've got the wrong person." Pei's mother chuckled, revealing her yellowed teeth. "Don't be shy, girl. Mingyan already told me he said he's been dating you, not Reborn." But when had I ever dated Pei Mingyan? I kept my composure and said, "Auntie, you really have the wrong person. Pei Mingyan and I are just ordinary classmates." Seeing that I still wouldn't admit it, Pei's mother opened her fun album and compared the girl in the photo. "That's right, it's you." I took one look and was utterly shocked. It really was my photo. Pei's mother seemed to think of something. Anger rose on her face as she grabbed my hair and yanked me hard. "I get it. My son spent that. Aren't you planning to dump him after taking all that money? You little come with me to see your homeroom teacher." I was dragged to the office. The teachers hadn't left school yet. "Mrs. Pei," she shoved me in front of the homeroom teacher. "Teacher Jiang, take a good look at your star student. She actually tricked my son's feelings." My son said he was dating Jiang Mingyue, so I gave her several thousand yuan to buy things. Now that she's gotten the stuff, She won't even acknowledge him. Her voice was loud. It drew the other teacher's attention. Even though I hadn't done any of this, I still felt utterly humiliated for the rest of my life. The last person I wanted anything to do with was Mrs. Pei. Pei's mother was this kind of person who was obsessed with money and status. In my previous life, she privately asked me for money many times to pay off gambling debts, and all told, it added up to several million. Now I feel like I'm the sucker here. My face flushed red. I've already told you, you've got the wrong person. My family background isn't so bad that I'd be interested in your son's few thousand yuan. Pei's mother didn't take it seriously. She insisted I was a gold digger. Well, the homeroom teacher, knowing my family was well off, suggested, why don't we bring Pei Mingyan over and ask him face to face? Pei's mother immediately called Pei Mingyan. At first, he didn't want to come, but Pei's mother was loud enough to be heard across the room. If you don't come, I'll beat you to death. More than 10 minutes later, Pei Mingyan finally showed up. He still had a blissful smile on his face, but when he saw me in the office, that smile slowly stiffened. Before Pei Mingyan arrived, I had already guessed why Pei's mother had misunderstood me. It should have been because he had used the excuse of dating me to make Pei's mother pay up. Otherwise, where do you think all those designer clothes came from? I can only say that doing something like this is pretty disgusting. The homeroom teacher asked directly, Pei Mingyan, are you and Jiang Mingwei dating? Pei Mingyan said nothing. He looked at me with eager anticipation. I knew he wanted me to cover for him. If I didn't go along with it, given Madame Pei's personality, she definitely wouldn't let it go. But why should I help him when we're not even related? I turned my head away, making my refusal perfectly clear. If I fell for it again, I'd be an idiot under the circumstances. Pei Mingyan had no choice but to bite the bullet and admit it. Yeah, Jiang Mingwei and I are indeed dating. Pei's mother clapped in delight. See, I told you they were dating, and he still won't admit it. So, what if you come from a wealthy family? If your character's bad, it's all for nothing. My son is the only one who'd even take AA to you, so you should be grateful. The homeroom teacher and the other teachers were also looking at me. Jiang Mingyue, is that true? I could hardly believe my ears. Those words actually came out of Pei Mingyan's mouth. He could go chase his own love, but why should he use my reputation to pay for it? I let out a cold laugh. You say we're a couple, then show me proof. Prove that you ever spent a single cent on me. Pei's mother saw that I still wouldn't give up. Son, pull up the transfer records and slap her in the face with them. I'd like to see how tough her mouth really is. Pei Mingyan simply couldn't produce any records. First, he and I weren't a couple. Second, all that money had been spent on him and Jiang Xinyu. Seeing that Pei Mingyan still hadn't moved, Pei's mother impatiently pushed him. Get the records out already. Only then did Pei Mingyan reluctantly take out his phone. Apart from not showing Pei's mother the transfer records, he showed her everything else. She was so proud of it that she even showed each teacher one by one. Just look, this is all the money my son spent on her, and she still refuses to admit it. Just as Pei's mother turned her guns on me, my mom arrived. What happened? Although I'm in my 30s mentally, the moment I saw my mom arrive, my eyes still lit up. Mom, seeing how polished and elegant my mom looked. Mrs. Pei came over to butter her up and then recounted everything that had just happened with plenty of added embellishment, saying I had poor morals and had played with her son's feelings. My mom only asked one thing, is what she's saying true? I shook my head. No, I didn't. My mom didn't ask any more questions. She walked up to Pei Mingyan and said, I suggest you tell the truth, or I'll take legal action. You wouldn't want to ruin your future at such a young age, would you? Pei Mingyan was so nervous his palms were sweating. No matter how many times he saw my mom, he was still intimidated by her presence. As soon as Pei's mother heard that, she was displeased and stepped in front of Pei Mingyan. You're threatening my son. My mom pushed Pei's mother aside. I'm talking to your son, not to you. You'd better mind your manners. 2. Pei's mother said, you, having been given a second chance at life. Pei Mingyan could never give up his future. He could only tell the truth, clearly. Sorry, Auntie, I just lied. Jiang Shiyue and I are not in a relationship. Pei's mother thought Pei Mingyan had gotten scared and grabbed him, still wanting to argue about it, but he yanked his hand away. Mom, my girlfriend is someone else, not Jiang Shiyue. Pei's mother's eyes flew wide open, and she slapped Pei Mingyan across the face on the spot, right in front of all the teachers in the office, as if she were about to beat him up. Who the hell are you calling a Mrs. Pei? Showed Pei Mingyan absolutely no mercy. She slapped him, punched him, and kicked him. If she hadn't come without anything to use as a weapon, and if his homeroom teacher hadn't stepped in, he'd have been beaten to a pulp right then and there. Even so, Pei Mingyan never mentioned Jiang Shiyue's name, but there was no way I was going to do what he wanted. Maybe, Auntie, you should ask Jiang Shiyue. I didn't look at the expression on Pei Mingyan's face. I took my mom and left. I had no reason to be the scapegoat for his love life. The next day, I heard from my desk mate that night, Mrs. Pei forced Pei Mingyan to take her to find Jiang Shiyue, saying that she had seduced Pei Mingyan and Frame. He slapped him twice across the face, so hard he knocked out 2 front teeth. The whole school heard about it. The next day, Jiang Shiyue came into the classroom with her face still badly swollen. My desk mate couldn't hold it in and burst out laughing after hearing it. Jiang Shiyue felt wronged and lay face down on her desk, crying silently. Not long after, Pei Mingyan asked the homeroom teacher to let him withdraw from school. Word was that Pei's mother refused to let him keep going to school, and if he wouldn't drop out, she'd beat him to death. The homeroom teacher didn't even try to talk him out of it and agreed right away. In fact, Pei Mingyan had exceptional talent in medicine, and if he had followed the course of his previous life, he would surely have made outstanding contributions to the medical field. It was a shame to lose such an excellent doctor. That's all. After Pei Mingyan dropped out of school, I rarely saw him again, as if he had faded out of my life. Then one night, while I was out walking my dog, I happened to see him coming to find Jiang Shiyue. I was about to leave when I heard Pei Mingyan become unusually agitated. Jiang Shiyue, I'm not incapable of supporting you. Why are you degrading yourself to be with him? Jiang Shiyue said sarcastically, support me. Keep using your mom's money to support me. Or go work in a factory tightening screws for 2,000 yuan a month to support me. Pei Mingyan, I'm not looking down on you, but my monthly living allowance is 10,000 yuan. Do you really think you're worthy of me? Pei Mingyan stared at Jiang Shiyue in shock. So, you never liked me at all. Then why did you help me when I was being isolated? Jiang Shiyue gave a cold laugh. I'd help anyone, no matter who they are. Who knows? You might actually end up falling for me. And don't ever contact me again. I've already had enough of you to make me sick. It turned out that Pei Mingyan had wanted to give Jiang Shiyue a surprise. Instead, he caught her all over her sugar daddy. Only then did Pei Mingyan realize that the woman he had loved for 10 years had never loved him, or maybe from the very beginning. She had only pitied him. In my last life, I loved Pei Mingyan, but could never have him. In this one, he loves Jiang Shiyue, but can never have her. All I can say is, it's karma. I had no interest in eavesdropping any longer, so I decided to take the dog back. But my dog suddenly darted out. Woof. Pei Mingyan looked utterly dazed, as if his soul had been knocked right out of him, as if he'd lost his soul. Well, in my previous life, I had eyes only for him. You could say he enjoyed being adored by me. How could he possibly accept such a stark contrast? Jiang Shiyue, on the other hand, looked at me nervously. Mingyu, she was afraid I'd tell her sugar daddy about it. I quickly cut her off. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Just as I bent down to pick up the dog, Pei Mingyan called out to me, Jiang Mingyue, don't you like me? What does that mean? Am I just your backup plan? I said coldly, are you out of your mind? How could I possibly like you? Can you fall twice after falling once? Jiang Shiyue had no memory of her past life. She didn't understand what was going on and asked blankly, Pei Mingyan, what do you mean? Pei Mingyan treated Jiang Shiyue like air. He grabbed my wrist. Mingyue, let's live a good life together in this lifetime. You've liked me for 10 years. How could you say you don't like me and then not like me anymore? I laughed in exasperation at Pei Mingyan. I hadn't forgotten the look of disgust in his eyes when he looked at me. And now he still wanted to use me to make Jiang Shiyu jealous. I raised my hand and slapped Pei Mingyan across the face. Pei Mingyan, are you pathetic or what? I got home and hurried straight into a shower. I was terrified of catching the virus. As I dried my hair, I kept thinking back to my past life. Why on earth had I liked Pei Mingyan? Was it just because he was the only one who ever reached out a hand to me? Maybe it was the cold, fragile air about him that made me want to be kinder to him. In the end, loving someone I could never have became my obsession. So girls really should find someone who loves them back. Ever since that day, I kept running into Pei Mingyan on my way to school. He was still wearing his factory uniform, looking all gray and drab. He'd lost the polished, glamorous air he used to have. It was clear he wasn't doing well without me. Pei's mother's gambling debt was an endless pit. He had no money to fill the hole for Pei's mother. I had originally meant to go around him, as I always did. But this time he called out to me, Mingyu. His voice was very soft, very gentle. It left me a little dazed. I stopped in my tracks. Something wrong. Pei Mingyan clenched his fists. He looked uncertain. Mingyu, I want to ask, is there still a chance for us? I looked up at Pei Mingyan. His eyes were dull and lifeless, just like when he found out Jiang Shiyu was getting married, completely crushed. But the truth was, Pei Mingyan was already out of my league. I even regretted ever falling for him. I poured all my energy into studying. On the mock exam, I broke into the top 10 in my grade. My mom wiped away tears of relief. Yaya, I knew you could do it. In fact, my mom wasn't really trying to force me to get into a university. She was just too fixated on it. Back then, she missed the cutoff by 1 point, so she pinned all her hopes on me. But I'd always been a poor student growing up. As long as I could promise her something to hold on to, who knew I might actually stand a chance at getting in. Seeing this, Jiang Shiyu put on a fake smile and praised me for being impressive, saying I had a shot at a university. Then she casually told my mom that she was going to become a trainee. My mom wouldn't stop her anyway. She was just giving her a heads up. I wasn't surprised. In my previous life, Jiang Shiyu also became a trainee right before the college entrance exams. Back then, I didn't think much of it and even thought she was being reckless. Now, I just think she had a mind of her own. After the perfunctory small talk, Jiang Shiyu went upstairs. I was about to do some more practice questions, and after just 2, I heard someone downstairs calling my name. Jiang Mingyue. I looked down from upstairs and saw Pei Mingyan. He was drunk, swaying unsteadily on his feet. I didn't want to go down and see him, but if I didn't, he just kept calling my name from downstairs, worried about disturbing the neighbors next door. I had no choice but to go downstairs, only to see my mom coming down in her pajamas. She grabbed me by the arm. Yaya, don't go. For the past couple of days, I've kept dreaming that because of Pei Mingyan, you want to cut ties with me as mother and daughter. I called security to throw him out. I froze and looked up at my mom. Wrinkles had formed at the corners of her eyes. I gently patted her hand. Mom, it's okay. Dreams are always the opposite of reality. I got a second chance at life. How could I bear to disappoint the mother who loved me most? When he saw me, Pei Mingyan staggered toward me. Ming, this is all my fault. I was so foolish. I never saw Jiang Shiyu's true colors, and I hurt you again and again. Can you forgive me? Hearing those words, I felt nothing at all. It was only after Jiang Shiyu broke his heart that he remembered how well I had once treated him. But no one would be willing to wait forever for someone who never comes back. I planned to make everything clear tonight. Otherwise, Pei Mingyan would keep bothering me. With the college entrance exam only half a month away, I didn't have the time or energy to deal with him. I looked up at Pei Mingyan. Pei Mingyan, do you know there's a life debt between us? You killed me with your own hands. How big do you think my heart has to be to accept that my future husband is the man who killed me? Even if he hadn't killed me, I still wouldn't choose him again. I was just too exhausted. Pei Ming Yen stared at me in a daze, his lips moving slightly. Then, what if I give you my life back? I just thought he was saying it out of anger. Do whatever you want. Don't come looking for me again. After that day, I never saw Pei Ming Yen again. Maybe he had finally come to his senses and stopped pestering me. But the day before the college entrance exam, I received a text from a stranger. Anything you want, I'll do it for you. My sixth sense told me it was Pei Ming Yen, but with the college entrance exam tomorrow, I put out of my mind. The exam went smoothly, and I estimated my score would be about 20 points above last year's cutoff. So I was pretty much set. My mom came to pick me up herself, and she put an arm around my shoulders. It's okay. Whether you get into a university or not doesn't matter. Mom has seen how hard you've worked, and I'm already more than satisfied. She was the one who was clearly nervous, but I didn't call my mom out on it. I just said, okay. My mom took me to eat at Myanji while we were waiting for our food. A picture message suddenly popped up on my phone. It scared me so much I almost threw my phone. Jiang Xiu lay in a pool of blood, her eyes fixed fiercely on me. Then a text from Pei Mingyan popped up. Mingyue, I killed Jiang Xiu to pay you back with my life. I'm proving to you that I will never love her. So, can we be together? I broke out in a cold sweat. Why was Pei Mingyan so extreme in this life? The one who killed me was clearly him, yet he actually thought I was blaming Jiang Xiu. Did he really think he was blameless? It took me a long time to calm down. Then I called the police. This time, I wouldn't make the wrong choice again. 2 days later, Pei Mingyan was arrested and brought to justice, but he was diagnosed with a mental illness, so he couldn't be executed and could only be held in a psychiatric hospital. I figured it might be because, in this life, he ruined his future for Jiang Xiu and ended up disgraced because of her. He just couldn't accept the fall from grace. Maybe he never really wanted to be with me, either. He just wanted to use me to turn things around. In fact, any of those possibilities could be true, but I'm glad that in this life, he and I have nothing to do with each other. The day the college entrance exam results came out, my mom was even more nervous than I was. She dragged me to the computer to wait for the score report. Ugh, why is the result still not out? This is killing me. It was my results I was checking, but my mom was more anxious than I was. I even had to comfort her. It's fine. It should be soon. By the time the results came out, my mom actually didn't dare to look. Take a look. What did you get? I glanced at the score. 649, just as I expected. My mom nearly jumped with excitement, grabbing me in a tight hug and showering me with kisses. Later, when it was time to fill out my college choices, I submitted a university as I'd hoped. It made up for the regrets of both my lives. During summer break, I also went to see Pei Ming Yen once. He'd grown so thin, he looked like a sheet of paper, and I almost didn't recognize him. He had nobody to blame but himself. He was given a second chance at life by fate, yet all he wanted was romance and love. Luckily, this time I made the right choice. The end. Story 2. Qing Shuang said she suspected her boyfriend was cheating and asked me to accompany her to catch him in the act. I agreed, but I never expected that I would see Yi Jun with another girl in the hotel. They were arm in arm, looking very intimate to outsiders. I froze on the spot for a moment, feeling confused. Why would Yi Jun, who treated me so well, come to a hotel with a girl I didn't know? Why? They didn't see me. The two of them walked towards the front desk, chatting and laughing all the way. I even witnessed that the moment they got the room card and the elevator arrived, Yi Jun and the girl started necking. He pushed the girl into the elevator and pinned her against the wall, kissing her like a shadow that couldn't see the light. I followed them all the way, watching helplessly as they closed the door of the room. Tears fell before my heart completely died. I had never felt such a deep sense of helplessness. I was so dazed that I didn't know what to do next. So my feet moved faster than my mind, and I walked towards the door of the room. I knocked on the door. The room didn't seem to be very soundproof. When I got closer, I could even hear the girls' cheerful moans. No one answered, so I knocked again. There was a rustling sound from behind the door, and then the door opened, The anger on Jun's face instantly turned into shock when he saw me. He came out and carefully closed the door. After observing his expression, I looked at his bare chest. There were little red marks on it, and there was even a clear bite mark on his Adam's apple. In an instant, my tears couldn't hold back anymore. Why? Why would someone who cared so much about me and loved me cheat? I slapped Jun tremblingly, and he didn't move. So, I slapped him a second, third, and countless more times until I was tired from hitting. I lowered my head and asked softly, "Why? Why did you betray me?" Jun didn't answer, but said, "Have you had enough? If you have, don't go in and look for her. I like her. It's not her fault." Because he liked her. He wanted to have her. He didn't care about loyalty or the efforts of the other party in the marriage, just because of liking. For a few short minutes, the corridor was silent. I lowered my head, not knowing what I was thinking. Or maybe I was thinking about everything. My mind was in a mess. Jun chuckled and said, "Come on, Cha-Chow, this is getting boring. Since you found out, I'll divorce you." After he said that, I slapped him again. How could Jun be so shameless after betraying me? He still affectionately called me by my nickname. All my emotions came back in an instant. I gathered up all my sadness and grief. I raised my head with a slight curve on my lips. "Fine. I want 70% of the marital property." The girl in the room immediately opened the door and rushed out angrily. She didn't dare to come out when she heard our confrontation, but rushed out without hesitation when she heard about the property division. This was the girl Jun liked. It made the time I had spent struggling with him seem like a joke. "Why do you want so much?" She was wrapped in a bathrobe, looking delicate and small, even with anger on her face. She couldn't hide her vitality. She was very different from me, who had been worn down by life. When Jun saw her rushing towards me, for fear that I would hurt her, he carefully pulled her to his side. How ironic. The person who used to care so much about me would now divide his love and care among others. I looked at their intertwined fingers and said with a tug at my lips, "Why? Because you're the mistress, interfering in someone else's relationship, and Jun is the at-fault party." The girl was left speechless by me, and the anger on her face turned into unease. "I won't be the mistress after you two. Divorce. It's just temporary." I took out my phone and took a photo of the two of them. Then, thinking it wasn't enough, I directly recorded a video. The girl hurriedly covered her face, and Jun shielded her behind him and pushed me, shouting at me, "What are you doing?" I didn't move. After the recording ended, I put the phone back in my pocket and said calmly, "If you don't agree to my terms, I won't sign the divorce papers. Then you'll always be the mistress, and everyone around you will know about it." I met Qing Xian at the hotel entrance. Unlike me, who had been kept in the dark, she had long known that her boyfriend was cheating. She came today just to completely give up on him. After I stepped back from pretending to be strong, a sense of powerlessness welled up in me. Qing Xian had been crying her eyes out, feeling that her sincere love had been wasted. But after I told her what had happened to me, she was left stunned. It took her a long time to clench her fists and find her voice again. "You just let them bully you like this. No way. I'm going to find Jun. What a scumbag." I held her back and pulled her to a convenience store nearby to sit down. I bought 2 cans of low-alcohol drinks, sat at the entrance, and drank them in the slightly cool night breeze. Qing Xian started crying as she drank. Is there really no such thing as true love in the world? Is it really that hard to have a relationship? It's bad enough for me, but you've been with him from school to marriage. More and more cans piled up on the table, but the more I drank, the clearer my mind became. Qing Xian mumbled and lay down in a trance. I looked at the fine lines on my hands and suddenly realized, yes, Jun and I had known each other for 10 years, but we had only been married for 3 years. Just 3 years, and everything had changed. Jun and I were classmates in high school. At first, we didn't get along well. It's normal for the first and second place in the class to dislike each other. Later, for my convenience in going to school, my mom sold our old house and bought a new one in the city center. Jun became my neighbor, living right across the door. On the day of the move, it happened to be a holiday. He passed by me holding tutoring materials he bought from the bookstore. I thought he didn't see me, but after walking a few steps, Yi Jun stopped and turned around. Many years later, I still remember that day. The sunlight shone on the boy's face, creating a halo. He smiled in surprise. "Hey, it's you, little desk mate. You're my new neighbor." He was such a boy who would secretly meet every day to protect me. A boy who, in the tense and suffocating environment of senior high school, still insisted on building a snowman for me on a snowy winter night. A person who, despite being busy during the internship, was not afraid to travel across provinces just to celebrate my birthday. It was such a person who, after so many years, betrayed me. Tears welled up in my eyes. Maybe I drank too much. I seemed to see June appear in front of me again. He smiled gently and rubbed my head, just like when he proposed. Yi Jun said, "Our cha-cha should always be happy." I threw the can at his face, but it missed. The illusion dissipated. It was all fake. Love was fake. Actions were fake. Only lies were real. Yi Jun didn't come back that night, but the girl kept sending me photos with his phone. In the photos, both of their necks were covered with red marks. She was snuggled in Yi Jun's arms, smiling sweetly. I indifferently saved all the photos she sent. If there was a problem with the property division later, these would be my weapons. The girl was still typing to provoke me. "Sister, if June isn't happy with you, only I can bring him happiness. You'd better step aside quickly." I didn't reply to her and put the phone aside. I opened the physical examination report sent by the hospital. Before this incident was exposed, Yi Jun always said he had a headache. Coincidentally, we hadn't had a physical examination for nearly a year, so we took this opportunity to have a comprehensive physical examination. Now, looking at the physical examination results on the report, in Yi Jun's column, it clearly stated mid-stage brain tumor. So, people who betray true love really do get punished by heaven. I smiled and folded the report, pressing it under the tissue box on the coffee table, since Yi Jun didn't want me to disturb him. Fine. Then I don't have to tell him about his brain tumor. The report was just there. If he came back to pack his things and was willing to look, he would see it. The next day, Yi Jun handed the drafted divorce agreement. I read it over and over again, afraid that Yi Jun had done something tricky. Unexpectedly, this behavior seemed to Yi Jun as proof that I couldn't bear to part with him. Yi Jun sat on the sofa, relaxed, with a faint smile of pride in his eyes. "Cha-chow, if you don't want a divorce, we don't have to. Don't worry. I'll never let Saran disturb you." Saran was the girl's name. I gave him a sarcastic look and signed the agreement without hesitation. I don't want unfaithful love, and I don't want an unfaithful person even more. Putting down the pen, I immediately gave him the order to leave. "The signature is done. We'll meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau in a few days, according to the agreement. This house belongs to me. You can take your things and get out now." Yi Jun looked at me deeply. After a long time, he squeezed out a sentence through his teeth. "Don't regret it." I found it a bit funny. What was there to regret? Yi Jun left angrily, slamming the door loudly. I lowered my eyes to look at the report pressed by the tissue box on the side of the coffee table. Clearly, it was so close to Yi Jun, but he didn't even glance at it. His mind was all on the WeChat conversation with Saran. In just half an hour, Yi Jun's phone rang frequently, and every time he checked it, he had a smile on his lips. And once when I made a few more phone calls to him after work, was impatiently interrupted by him. He said with a smile, "Cha-chow, don't be so clingy. I don't like it." At this moment, I suddenly understood Yi Jun didn't dislike clingy people. He just didn't like me anymore. The divorce procedures were processed quickly. As long as the cooling-off period ended, Yi Jun and I would have no relation with each other completely. Outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, Yi Jun and I went in two different directions. I saw Yi Jun's hesitation to speak, but I didn't give him a chance to open his mouth. I had nostalgia. Qing Shuang was dragging a suitcase not far away, waving at me. "Come on, baby, let's have a single-person trip. 26 is the age to have fun." Looking at her excited appearance, I also laughed. "Let's go. In this month." Shuang, and I went to many places and also visited many cities that I had always wanted to go to, but couldn't because Ijuan didn't have time. I had so much fun that I sometimes still thought of Ijuan. I thought of the time I spent with him, but most of the time, I forgot about him. A month later, I successfully got the divorce certificate and saw Ijuan, whom I hadn't seen for a long time. I didn't know what he had experienced in this month. He was no longer as high-spirited as before. His face was a bit decadent and weather-beaten, and his eyes were full of exhaustion. Before I got the divorce certificate in my hand, he unexpectedly asked me, "Chow Chow, can we not divorce?" There was hope in Ijuan's eyes. The staff looked at us, and a knowing look flashed in their eyes. It was as if they were saying, "See, they're another couple getting back together, but a broken mirror is broken. No matter how you glue it, there will always be cracks, just like the trust and relationship between people. It can never go back to the way it was." I rejected Ijuan this time. I left more calmly than last time. Just then, the school was going to transfer a group of teachers to teach in the mountains for 3 months. I signed up to participate, cutting off all people and things related to Ijuan and completely removing him from my life. The children in the mountains are very enthusiastic about the volunteer teachers under the natural environment nurtured by nature. Everything seems so fresh and beautiful. It's not like the intrigue in the city. Although the conditions are simple, I like it here, as well as the people and things here. During heavy rain in the mountains, the power supply is always unstable and power outages are common. The light bulb in the dormitory kept flickering. I tried to turn off the power switch and reinstall it, but after it was installed, the light bulb completely stopped working. I had no choice but to ask my partner in the next room for help. Liang Qingyong was broad-shouldered and long-legged. He stepped on a bench and groped in the dark for a while. I turned on the flashlight of my phone to light for him. After a while, he jumped down and spread his hands helplessly. The power supply is unstable, and it directly burned out the light bulb. We'll buy a new one in the town tomorrow. I nodded to show my understanding and handed him a bottle of mineral water. "Thank you. I'll treat you to a meal when we get back." Liang Qingyong took it and unscrewed the cap and took a sip. His Adam's apple rolled up and down as he raised his head. I silently looked away. Don't be so polite. Meeting an old acquaintance in a distant land makes one's eyes brim with tears. Liang Qingyong joked humorously, and somehow the guard in my heart relaxed, and I also smiled. Still, I have to thank you. The next afternoon, after the class ended, Liang Qingyong came to the classroom door to look for me, specifically. The student saw it and made teasing and whistling sounds. Someone asked, "Are Teacher Liang and Teacher Jiang a couple?" I replied, "No, we're colleagues." Liang Qingyong leaned slightly against the window, his tone lazy but brisk. "Maybe I'll become good friends with Teacher Jiang in the future." The children all laughed happily, their eyes wandering between me and Liang Qingyong. "Why did you tease them? Now, it might affect your reputation." I walked out and walked side by side with him, saying helplessly, and then added, "I've already troubled you a lot yesterday. I can buy the light bulb myself later." Liang Qingyong said lightly, "It's no trouble, and I really do want to be friends with you." I stopped, a bit puzzled, although we were partners before this, apart from communication regarding the courses. We didn't have much contact. He was a professor at a well-known university, and the news of my recent divorce was well known to everyone. Why would he want to be friends with me? Perhaps due to the failure of my previous marriage. I'm always on guard against unfamiliar strangers now. I've started to love dealing with interpersonal relationships, yet I have to compromise with life and conform to reality. After pausing for just a moment, I started walking again, reaching a position shoulder to shoulder with Liang Qingyong, imitating his playful manner. I replied, "Okay, I hope we can become friends." Liang Qingyong is a very humorous and witty person. He doesn't fit the stereotype of those cold and noble university professors in novels at all. During the 3 months in the mountains, he helped me a lot. In the last week before we were about to leave, we made an appointment to climb the mountain to watch the sunrise in the morning mist. Halfway up the mountain, I was a bit out of breath. after graduating from university. The most exercise-related thing I did was walking to work. Looking at the large distance between Liang Qingyong and me, I felt a bit embarrassed. Liang Qingyong caught a glimpse of me from the corner of his eye and slowly slowed down his pace. I let out a sigh of relief and quickened my steps to catch up with him. When we reached the mountain top, the sun was slowly rising. Looking out, the sky was filled with golden clouds. I couldn't help but blurt out, "It's so beautiful." At that moment, it seemed as if all the distractions in my heart were lifted. I didn't have to think about anything. All I saw was the scenery. Liang Qingyong turned to take a photo of me. I started to feel so embarrassed that I could almost dig a hole in the ground with my toes. Sometimes, even though it was a normal social distance, in my heart, it always felt too intimate. This was my problem. I thought silently. Liang Qingyong sent me the photo he took. Both the person and the scenery are beautiful. Since we're here, we should leave some memories. I didn't answer, just looking at the photo silently. Then, as the golden glow in the sky gradually faded, Liang Qingyong said, "Zhang Chao, maybe you think I'm being abrupt, but I have to admit that I seem to have a bit of a crush on you." My heart seemed to skip a beat. It was strange. Without measuring, I could feel that my heart rate increased for a moment. I pursed my lips, thought for a while, and then refused him. "Sorry, I don't really want to." Liang Qingyong interrupted me. "I don't expect a response from you, Zhang Chao, but you have to be more confident. You're not as bad as you think. You didn't do anything wrong. It's his loss not to cherish you. Don't let him PUA you." In that instant, my mind became completely clear. Yes, I'm very self-deprecating now. Or rather, it's not just now. A long time ago, after Jean gradually became impatient with me, I started to wonder what exactly I did wrong during these 10 years. Because of Jean, I had very little contact with other people. I gradually forgot that I used to be a very competent person. I was constantly being denied by Jean over and over again, so much so that I couldn't see clearly before this wasn't love at all. It was suppression and belittlement. Then, Jean thought I was no longer lively and turned to covet new feelings. Liang Qingyong was right. I was being PUA'd. 3 days before we were about to go down the mountain, Qing Shuang called and said she was almost there. I was a bit surprised and asked her what she was coming for. Qing Shuang said, "Haven't seen you for months, and I miss you so much. Coincidentally, your time here is almost up. Sister will take you out to have some fun." I said amusedly, "I still have to work. How can I just leave?" Qing Shuang waved her hand grandly. "Take a leave. Having fun is the most important thing." I didn't argue with her, just said we'd talk when she arrived. But the heavy rain in the mountains came suddenly, and the road conditions immediately became complicated. To make matters worse, I lost contact with Qing Xian. The people at school said that a mudslide had occurred on the road here, blocking the way, and they didn't know if anyone was injured. Qing Xian was on her way here. She encountered the mudslide because she was coming to find me. If something happened to her, if panic and fear took over all my consciousness, I said I was going down, to look for her. It seemed like some people were objecting to me, and some were trying to dissuade me. But I couldn't hear all the voices clearly. They were buzzing in my ears like mosquitoes. My brain was in a turmoil until my cheeks were gently held by a pair of big hands. Liang Qingxian looked into my eyes and my vision focused. "Relax." Okay. Half of his palm stroked my cheek, and I realized that I had shed so many tears. I seemed to be able to breathe on my own again. I was crying so hard that I was out of breath. "No, I can't wait. I've lost contact with her. We grew up together. She's my best friend. She can't have an accident." Liang Qingxian soothed me, put a raincoat on me, and picked up an umbrella. "The rain is relatively light now. Can I go with you?" I nodded in a flustered manner. Accompanied by Liang Qingxian, I immediately went down the mountain with the rescue team. Fortunately, Qingxian was okay. She just fell down accidentally when it was raining and had multiple abrasions all over her body. "Then why didn't you answer the phone?" Qingxian was shivering, wrapped in a blanket. "I put my phone in my pocket and it got dropped when I fell. I don't know where it is." seeing that she was safe. I let out a sigh of relief and lightly punched her. You scared me to death. After that, I turned my head to thank Liang Qingxian. In my mind, the scene on the way here kept flashing. I had to admit that at the moment when Liang Qingxian was willing to accept my decision and accompany me, my heart skipped a beat. It was just such a small act of approval. The mudslide blocked the road, and it would take time to clear it. So, we stayed on the mountain for a few more days. When it was finally time to leave, Qing Shuang hesitated to speak several times. How about you come and play with me for a few months? There's nothing good about going back. What if you see someone you don't want to see again? I said, running away isn't the solution. I can't run away for a lifetime. I always have to face it. Qing Shuang was silent for a long time, then slumped her shoulders and said, Then I have to tell you something. Although in my opinion, it's karma and Li Jin deserves it, but I think you might feel sorry for him. I was holding a water cup, gently blowing on the hot air. Is it about him having a brain tumor? Qing Shuang jumped up from the bench in disbelief. You know, I nodded slowly. After getting excited for a while, she sat down again. But maybe because of the onset of the disease, he's gradually forgetting everyone. But he only remembers you because he can't find you. He's almost going crazy. Hearing this, I raised my eyebrows slightly. This was something I didn't expect. Before coming here, I deliberately changed my phone number, except for my parents and Qing Shuang. No one knew it. My original intention was to cut off ties with the past, but it instead indirectly brought me peace. The next time I saw Li Jun was on a dark evening. He was leaning against the pillar at the school gate with a cigarette between his fingers. The tip of the cigarette glowed and dimmed. He looked quite dejected, but when he saw me, a light rose in his dull eyes. Cha Chao! Li Jun quickly ran up to me. When he stopped, he said a bit cautiously, Cha Chao, I'm here to take you back to our home. I found it ironic. Looking at the light in his eyes, the malice in my heart kept growing. It was like a drowning fish begging for water, but I didn't mind putting it in an even drier place. So, I said, sarcastically, our home. We're already divorced. Li Jin's face turned even paler and the light in his eyes went out. He looked at me with pleading and fear. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. How could I divorce you? Cha Chao, did I do something wrong? Please don't abandon me. Okay. I shook off his hand. Every time he got close, I stepped back. Yi Jin could tell my disgust and resistance and froze in place, not daring to move. I know you've lost your memory because of the brain tumor. Yi Jin, if you're sick, go and get treated. Don't pester me anymore. I'm not your toy. You can't divorce me whenever you want and then try to get back together whenever you want. Let's part ways here. Don't come to find me again. In my imagination, when I met Yi Jin again, I should be calm, but in the end, I still couldn't help being a bit hysterical. Yi Jin was always like this, giving a slap and then a sweet date. He turned a blind eye when I wanted something the most, but then eagerly offered it when I had let go and moved on. Just like this, taking me home thing so many times before. I had hoped to see Yi Jin's figure as soon as I went out, but he never came. Either he made excuses about being busy at work or having to socialize. When I got home, the house was always cold and dark. The food I cooked was always in a cycle of getting cold and being reheated. Now, after cheating, he said this sentence, so casually, it was quite ironic. I had made it so clear. If Yi Jin was sensible, he shouldn't come to find me again. But now he was like a piece of dogskin plaster, impossible to shake off. I had promised to treat Liang Qingyang to a meal when I was on the teaching support program. After coming back, I was busy for so many days, and finally I found a day to fulfill my promise. Liang Qingyang chose an atmosphere restaurant under the dim light. Everything seemed so ambiguous and hazy. Liang Qingyang noticed that I had been staring at him. He chuckled, took off his gold-rimmed glasses with a chain, placed them on the table, and with his hands clasped against his chin, he asked, "What's wrong?" I organized my words. "You look different today." Liang Qingyong today was stunningly handsome with a rather aggressive charm. Liang Qingyong rolled up his sleeves and poured wine for me. There was a symposium at school today, and I happened to be giving a speech. so I tidied myself up a bit. I understood and took small sips of the wine. Liang Qin-yong pointed behind me and asked politely, "Do you need any help?" We chose a seat by the window, so it was visible from both the inside and the outside. I turned my body in the direction Liang Qin-yong pointed and saw Yi-jun standing outside. He exuded a sense of brokenness, like an abandoned puppy. He probably wanted to come in, but was afraid of being disgusted by me. So, he kept looking and didn't dare to enter. I turned back and shook my head. After the meal, Liang Qin-yong invited me to take a walk by the river, and I readily agreed. All along the way, Yi-jun kept following me until I got impatient with being followed and stopped to look at him. Yi-jun still walked towards me cautiously. He glanced at Liang Qin-yong defensively. Then he smiled, but his voice was secretly choked with sobs. "Cha-chow, have you had enough fun? Can I take you home?" I looked at him coldly, turning a blind eye to all his acts of kindness, and directly asked, "Are you a piece of dogskin plaster?" "Yi-jun, don't be so clingy. I don't like it." Yi-jun's breath caught, and his eyes instantly turned red after I said the sentence. I felt a malicious sense of pleasure. So Yi-jun could also feel sad, but he had said this sentence to me countless times before. After about 3 seconds, he composed himself and shook the car keys in his hand. "It's not safe at night. You'd better not stay with a stranger. Let me take you home." I refused him. "This is my friend. He'll take me back. Don't follow me anymore. If you do, I'll call the police." When I said this, I was actually a bit nervous, afraid that Liang Qin-yong would refuse me. After all, I had said I would take a taxi back before. Liang Qin-yong raised his eyebrows, chuckled, and said with great gentlemanly demeanor, "Then let's go, my beautiful lady. I'll take you home." Yi-jun was left behind by us, without looking back. I could imagine how desolate he must be, but I couldn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy for him. Instead, my disgust and revulsion kept growing. I realized that there had to be a complete end between him and me. So, the next day, I took the initiative to go to his company to find him. When Yi-jun saw me coming, he was very surprised. He made me sit on the sofa and told his assistant to squeeze the orange juice I liked for me. I lowered my eyes and met his eyes as he half knelt on the ground. Looking up at me, I could see that he was really happy. The corners of his lips were slightly raised. I asked him, "You have a brain tumor. Why don't you go to the hospital for treatment?" Yi-jun thought I was concerned about him, and a light suddenly lit up in his eyes. It took him a while to say, a bit embarrassed, "Treating a brain tumor requires shaving my head. I was afraid you wouldn't like it. You're really something." I nodded, feeling speechless. I never knew I was so important in his heart, even more important than his life. Actually, whether you live or die has nothing to do with me. But I took out my phone and showed him all the evidence I had saved one by one. "I don't want you to pester me anymore. Pictures and videos don't lie." Yi-jun panicked, and his hands trembled uncontrollably. I wasn't satisfied and played them again, especially the real-life short video Sue Rand sent me. "Don't you think it's disgusting to watch this? Yi-jun, how can you expect me to accept you again?" Yi-jun choked back sobs, covering his ears, not wanting to listen or watch anymore. But the months of pleasure still seeped in from all directions. He held his head and tried to escape. "This isn't me. This really isn't me. How could I hurt my cha-chow? Who is this?" I watched him break down coldly, and then he knelt down calmly, sobbing uncontrollably. "Cha-chow, I really don't remember. You can't put his mistakes on me. Give me another chance." "Okay, know you are him, and he is you. You choose to forget all this, escape from all this, and then pester me as if nothing happened. You have amnesia, not a split personality," I said, coldly shattering all his willful ignorance and pretense. Yi-jun was immersed in the world he fabricated, yet he demanded that others perform with him. Was he really so in love with me that he couldn't leave me? No, it was just because of his illness, just because of his amnesia, and coincidentally, he only remembered me when he was healthy. He couldn't remember any of my goodness, but after getting sick, in his own world, he only remembered me. He was seeking a sense of security from me, and I had no obligation to give it to him. Love is not possession, nor is it one-way giving. Before I left, Ijuan still asked with a choked voice, unwilling to give up. Cha-cha, if I chase you again, like when we were 18, would you still talk to me? This time, I replied more affirmatively and completely. No, never. I paused, thought of the beautiful moments we had truly experienced, and then said with a smile, the 18-year-old, you definitely wouldn't forgive the present you, either, whether it was being childhood sweethearts or going from campus to wedding. The ending of a novel always stays at the best moment. While reality is real and cruel, after the beauty, there are only fragments with hidden knives. After Ijuan was hospitalized, he always asked his friends to hint to me that he hoped I could go and see him. I never went, nor did I ever ask about the progress of his treatment. But perhaps Ijuan was really afraid of dying, so he made a will, apart from the part for his parents' old age care. All the rest of his property was left to me. Chim Xian told me that Su Ran was furious when she heard about this. Regardless of Ijuan being in the ward, she made a huge scene in the hospital, creating a chaotic mess. Chim Xian said, gloating while biting into a grilled skewer. Serves her right. I say, she disappeared without a trace as soon as she knew Yi Jun was sick. But she came back when it was time to divide the property. Yi Jun is sick, not blind. He can tell who really cares about him. What's more, he's like a different person after losing his memory. I shook my head and refuted her, but the previous him really liked Su Ran. I could tell, even if he pretended well, even if he still acted as if he loved me, but his long-term absent-mindedness was real. His repeated refusals to answer the phone were real, and all the things he did for Su Ran were even more real. Once hurt, it's done. Liang Qingyong asked me to go climbing again. He said that more exercise was good for young people's health. When the sun was gradually rising after we climbed to the top of the mountain, he asked me, would you consider me? This time, I was silent for a long time. Instead of answering, I asked him, what do you like about me? Liang Qingyong smiled lazily, looking into the distance, but his thoughts seemed to be drawn far away. When we first went to teach in the mountains, we passed a village. There was a very, very old grandma carrying a heavy basket of oranges. When she passed by us, the basket was unsteady, and the oranges fell. The villagers just watched indifferently, and no one helped her. When the teaching support team saw that the villagers didn't help, they didn't dare to step forward either. People are so wary these days, and everyone is afraid of being blackmailed. But you stupidly helped the old grandma pick up the oranges, and even left your own things to help her carry them to a flat place. Hearing him say this, I immediately remembered this incident, but it was different from how he saw me. It was just a coincidence. At that time, I was just absent-minded, like a soulless shell. I was following the group in a daze. When I saw someone needed help, I just stepped forward without noticing the strange looks from others. Liang Qingyong's answer made me a bit disappointed. What he liked was the me he saw by chance. Liang Qingyong added, actually, what really made me want to get to know you was a rainy night. You kept taking care of a student who had a fever and couldn't go to the hospital. Liang Qingyong said, his voice as soft as a whisper. He had never seen someone like this. Even though she was so sad that she couldn't extricate herself, she didn't pass on her negative emotions to others. Instead, she was like a warm stove. She kept providing emotional support to others. Most of the children in the mountains are left behind children. It's common for them not to see their parents for several years or even decades. That student with a fever kept having fevers and sweating throughout the night. Jiang Chao took care of her all night without rest. This wasn't solely her responsibility, even if the other teachers were reluctant. She could have asked others to take over, but Jiang Chao didn't. She stayed up all night, constantly wiping the student's body to cool her down. When the student was sad and missed her mother, Jiang Chao would gently pat her back and comfort her, just like a real mother comforting her daughter. When Liang Qingyong saw this by the dim light, he didn't know whether to call her stupid or too kind. But Jiang Chao's kindness also had a bottom line. Liang Qingyong hadn't seen such a pure-hearted person in a long time, and naturally, he was attracted to her. Wasn't this normal? He didn't care about her past. The fact that her painful past hadn't crushed her meant she was even stronger than he thought. But she looked so sad that he couldn't help but want to help her. My ears turned red, and I almost started digging my toes into the ground again. Pretending to be someone else's mother was embarrassing enough. And now Liang Qing Nayang had seen all of this. Liang Qing Nayang probably noticed my unease. He adjusted his cuffs and then said seriously, "If you really want to ask what I like about you, no matter how many words I use, they're just adjectives. Rather than that, I can say I like everything about you. Your sadness, joy, sorrow, all your emotions. I like you as a person." The rumbling in my chest was deafening. It was so clear that I almost thought I would die from a high heart rate. I stared at Lian Qingyan in a daze. No one had ever said to me, "I like all your emotions." Not Yejuan, not Qingxian, nor my parents. But in fact, this was all I had ever really wanted. Lian Qingyan wasn't in a hurry for my answer. The sun gradually rose, and the temperature got higher, getting a bit hot. He took off his sun hat and put on me, slightly lowering the brim to block my vision. Although I couldn't see clearly, his voice, as clear as pearls and broken jade, rang in my ears. "I'm going to teach in the mountains again. Can you give me an answer in a month?" I seemed to nod, or maybe I didn't, but I was sure I said, "Okay,